Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. We're going to deep dive into the why and the how we developed GenAI use cases to support Webhelp Enterprise. So first, we should introduce ourselves. This works, right? As I'm already talking, I will start. Sorry, Julie. Jérôme Collin, I'm a managing director at 55.
Hello, I'm Julie Catalan. I'm Deputy GM for Webhelp Enterprise. I represent the B2B sales activities for Concentrix plus Webhelp.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bastien Chapuis. I'm Data Scientist Lead at 55.
Just a few words about 55. For those of you who don't know us, we're about 13 years old now. We're a consulting firm specializing in technology and data. We leverage technology and data in order to craft better brand experience. We have about 10 offices to cover the whole globe. We have about more than 400 people working at 55, consultants, experts, etc. We work for a lot of firms, mostly blue chip firms like Total Energy, Hilton, Groupe Renault, etc., but also smaller ones and startups. And our services revolves around 4 pillars: strategy, cloud services, meaning collecting, processing data, for example, media consulting from strategy to operations, and customer experience, most significantly including testing and personalization. Julie, if you want to talk about Concentrix and Webhelp.
Yes, sure. If you can please move. Yeah. So Concentrix plus Webhelp is a new combined group. It's been 3 weeks. We announced now the merger. We provide game-changing journeys. We work on customer experience, and we combine people and technology to provide the best experience to all the clients of our own clients. As I said in the introduction, if you can please move to the next slide, I am in charge of the B2B sales activities. So this is Concentrix. You can see we are basically all over the world with 2,000 clients. When it comes to B2B sales, we have a little bit than 10,000 B2B sales game changers dedicated to 160 plus clients. Mostly working in IT and high-tech industries, but not only. We have a very wide panel of clients. And when I say that we cover B2B sales, we really cover the end-to-end sales cycle. So for some clients, we do demand generations. For some of them, we go till the actual sale with inside salespeople. We can also support customer success approach, onboarding of new clients, renewals. We do sales supports to in-house sales team, field sales. We also do channel management, onboarding, recruitment, and animation of partners and resellers. And last but not least, we can also do some go-to-market consulting and help our clients define the best processes to tackle a new market or geography. We do that combining people, processes, technology, and insights. And what you're going to see today is a demonstration of a mock-up product we designed over the summer with the help of 55. That's the very best example of how we can combine people and technology. If you can please move forward. So as you know, GenAI has been a big buzzword, and we had to look at it, but look at it with the B2B sales prisma and make sure that we could cover the needs of our sales teams. And today, sales teams are usually overwhelmed with a lot of tools, with a lot of information. So the very first thing we look at is what are the key areas where we could support them with AI and GenAI. We believe that the very first topic is how to help them better prepare calls. And we identified 3 areas: how we can help them digest a big, massive number of information they can collect from a CRM, from the web, could be LinkedIn or any other websites. We can also help our sales team better pick the highest potential prospects through some scorings. And last but not least, we can help them prepare icebreakers, messages. As Jérôme once said, it's easier to start from a draft than from a blank page. So we want to help them prepare tailored messages based on all this information they have digested, or we help them digest to make sure they have the most relevant, impactful first communication towards a prospect or a client. The second pillar is how we then help them while they engage with the client or prospect. The very first thing is how we improve the communication. We have sales team that are doing a modern selling approach. The time of pure outbound calls is purely over. So it's very important for us that we help them have the most impactful messages, as I said. And probably as you have in your sales team, the Gen Z is everywhere. So this generation, which I'm very close to, let's say, learn to write mostly with text messages. So I don't know if you have little brothers or sisters, but sometimes their grammar spelling is not so good. So we need to help them improve that. And we also want to help the salespeople improve the semantic. For example, picking or replacing the word problem with challenge, or price with investment, this type of small changes that will make written communication much more impactful and higher the chances of converting. The second topic when it comes to engagement is be able to assist them while they are actually engaging on the phone with the prospect or client. For that, we actually use an existing market solution called Cognid that will provide live insights while they speak, depending on the keywords they spell. And last but not least, it's also important to leverage AI to help the sales team follow up after a call or an email. And make sure they don't spend hours updating a Salesforce, for example. So we're looking at how we can leverage AI and GenAI to reduce the back office tasks, how we can support the team leader with quicker and better post-call analytics, especially when a team leader is managing a multilingual team, and how we can also help them assess the quality versus all the training the client has provided. So this is a lot of possible ideas. It's not an exhaustive list, but we worked on especially 3 topics together with 55 over the summer. That's the 3 topics where we believed we could have some low-hanging fruits and develop a solution pretty quickly. So information digest, icebreakers, and communication consistency. So Jérôme will show you this. I raise your attention about the fact that it's a short project we had, 6-8 weeks over the summer. It's a mock-up. It's not a live product, but in the next weeks we'll keep working to make it live and apply it to our sales teams. Jérôme, stage is yours.
Thank you, Julie. And yeah, this is a mock-up, so it's not live in the sense working live for the people at Webhelp today, but it's done using real data, and it has been performed as live. So without further ado, we'll show you a first example. So the first use case was about the preparation of the call. I'm going to reach a prospect. Can you give me the essential information about this person and this company? And going into the tool. So I'm going to start a video. As you can see, this is the front for the user. I'm trying to start it. Yeah. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Let's start it like this. Because this is a public demonstration, we use the anonymized data, and which, sorry, I'm gonna have to go back here and start it again. We're using anonymized data, but we also have the ability, of course, to do it with full data. And for Webhelp, we worked on 3 different projects. Here, for example, the case of an electronic marketplace in Asia, looking for companies that would like to be present on this marketplace. So we have the list of prospects, and let's choose, for example, Gunjan, and we ask the GenAI to summarize the prospect details. It's going to take just a little bit of time, gathering all the data, processing them, and putting them in form. But as you can see, very quickly, we get the first information about the prospect, his role, his seniority, his background, even its contact links, his recent posts on LinkedIn. And we get the same kind of information about the company itself. what kind of business, what size, what growth, recent posts, and very, very nice here at the bottom right, we have this blue area where we use the information that we have gathered to try and explain why we think this could be an interesting prospect. So this can be used afterwards by the game changer in order to prepare its icebreaker or prepare the call. Let me give you another example here. That's another project in France this time, so still anonymized data. The project is about employee benefits, so ticket restaurant. And we're going to, I'm sorry, something is not working really well. Let's see if it works this time. Employee benefits. So we have again the list of prospects. We can choose one of them, and you can see everything is in French. And we will get the prospect details again. What's going to be interesting here is the same kind of data as before, but for me, GenAI is kind of language agnostic. So you can work in any language and doesn't discriminate between them. So here we will have a mix of French and English. The name of the role is in French, the description is in English, the business perimeter for companies in French, because that comes from LinkedIn, and it was in French on LinkedIn. Again, at the bottom right, we have this blue area where we explain why this could be an interesting prospect. But if a manager wants to check it, it's good to have a language continuity, so we can also translate all of this in English so that we have all the information in the same language, which is what you have here. And same kind of information as before. See the most recent post for the person and for the company, and at the end I can say whether I'm happy with the answer or not. If I say you could do it better, you can also input comments that will feed the AI, and with that I'll give the floor to Bastien to explain a little bit more how we did that.
Thank you, Veron. So yeah, in terms of technically speaking, how did we implement all of that for Webhelp? Well, this is a combination of business expertise and technical stack, and this is no different from any AI application. On the business expertise side, well, we first had to understand what Webhelp needed to improve the sales experience. So this was about information data digest, communication consistency, and an icebreaker. And we applied to that a business and knowledge expertise, and also a data science expertise. On the technical side, well, we have the same blocks, same building blocks, which represents the application. So this is the front end with which the sales are going to interact with what Jérôme displayed. And then below that, you have the models. So either you choose custom models or default foundation models, such as GPT 3.5, GPT-4. All of these models will, of course, contain data, but will be, let's say, separated from the public models. All the data that is passed into the model will remain safe within the ecosystem. And then you have data. So data is like the most crucial component of this whole architecture. Bad data in is bad data out. So we needed some Webhelp data to inform the model itself and provide a nice output. The other thing is the MLOps. So MLOps is really about the processes to make the model remain constant over time, monitor the model over time to make sure the output is qualitative enough. So this is about the feedback and the logs that the model provides and where you enforce the model over time. And finally, all of that is maintained by a cloud platform. In this case, this was Azure Cloud Platform. Just keep in mind that data governance, privacy, and access to proprietary data is also something to take into account all along this process. And on the next slide, well, I'm going to present a little bit how we did it for Webhelp and the critical steps that helped us to build this whole architecture. So the first step is really about data preparation. I mentioned data over the previous slide, and like this is true, data is the most important thing within this project. We needed data that was clean enough, structured enough to be applied and to be sent to GPT. So Webhelp provided, as you can see on the schema here, Webhelp provided lead factory data containing name, company, LinkedIn links, and interest signals about the prospects. And what we did is we automated the scrapping to retrieve LinkedIn information, company website information, or other sources of information, just to consolidate the database and have details about the potential prospects. All of that was prepared. We transformed the data and put it into a consolidated database that would be the source for the GPT model. The second step is the prompt design. It's the step at which you have to write the prompt that will be fed into the GPT model, take into account the details about the prospect themselves, so that the model will build something that is qualitative enough in the output. So you design it given the desired outcomes, you improve it over time, and you create different versions of the prompts. The third step is the deployment. So all of that, as I mentioned before, is secured within Webhelp Azure environment. We deployed the application itself, the database, the prompt, the GPT model, all of that belongs to Azure environment so that there's no data leakage outside. And finally, the fourth and final step is about monitoring. Once you have all of that within the environment, once you have all of that working live, what you want to get feedback and logs from the users so that over the long term and you implement scalability, you will be able to improve the model over time.
I wanted to highlight a few things here too. The first thing is that we were lucky that Webhelp already had a lot of data thanks to its expertise in lead generation. So we had some material to start with, which was what we call the lead factory with a list of prospects and some details about them. So that enables us then to get more data about those prospects. Second thing I wanted to highlight is that for this use case, first, what we did is that all the preparation, the consolidated database is prepared in a batch mode. We don't do it live because it would be too complex at this time, and that's still a mock-up too. But then the processing by ChatGPT is done live. So we have this huge database that sits in Azure and on which ChatGPT can work. And
We
by
have
the
a
way, yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to address that. We can try and answer the question right now if you want.
We have a question asking why we are not using ChatGPT that can already browse the web, and why we use the scrapping from LinkedIn plus ChatGPT 3.5. So if I don't know, Jérôme or Bastien, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think in terms of, well, everything is about the quality of the data. We could scrap the web, of course, and we could even implement this scrapping on top of the GPT 3.5. That's not a technical limitation, but Webhelp data is more, let's say, more qualitative than what we would find on the web. There is access to LinkedIn professional accounts that will be able to retrieve information, access to specific company website. So we prefer to prioritize quality over quantity here, and we think that specific website would inform more about the prospect information than what we have on public web.
We had a question though in the previous webinar we did about, I mean, we could do that, but maybe to help the personalized icebreaker. Some host guests we had last time asked us if we could capture the weather on Google or whatever website and include that in the personalized icebreaker. Oh, I saw it's very hot in Lisbon today. How are you coping with the heat? Oh, by the way, I want to sell this product. That's a weird example, but we could capture some information on the web for sure. But as Bastien said, the weak signals or interest signals we capture, we can't do that so easily. We actually combine multiple sources of data, so we believe we still need to leverage the lead factory to get the best quality data possible.
Now, we had another question about how we can manage to keep the data coherent. Short answer here is that most of the data related to role or seniority, etc., come from LinkedIn, so that's already kind of prepared. But then if we have more data or more diversity, it is the job of the MLOps to make sure that the end results is consistent, and that's why we're required to do trials and then add rules, that kind of thing, to the model. Moving on then to the next example, because here what we looked at, it was mostly trying to find data, prioritize, organize them, and put them in an easy to read manner. But next step is a little bit bigger. It's based on those information. Can you draft an icebreaker? So we will use the same personas as we had before. So you might remember Gunjan for the marketplace project, and starting from this, we can try and prepare an icebreaker. So I'll let the AI do its job. So we go to the icebreaker. It's very quickly going to prepare a short icebreaker. That was the criteria. We make it short. So hi, Gunjan. A little bit about the company, a little bit about the marketplace itself, and then proposition to make a call. So this was short. We can ask the AI to make it more formal, and as you can see, it's going to change quite a bit. It's much more formal, starting, dear Gunjan, how this message finds you well. The sentences are a little bit longer and more formal. Looking forward to hearing from you at the end. Best regards. But we can do even more than that. We can ask the GenAI to add more advices. Those advices, those are the criteria, the information about why this should be interesting for this prospect. So again, you see much more material in this message, more details about how we found you and why we thought you were interesting for us, more information about why we could be interesting for you. So we get something that is already a very good draft for the salesperson, and we can even go further. And for example, somebody's preparing this message in English, but the prospect speaks Hindi. So we can also ask the AI to translate it into Hindi. And it takes a little bit more time for this part, but we get what I hope is a nice result. I'm unfortunately not able to read that. And we can look at the same example for HR manager in France, Olivia. Let's go again. That. So we go to the icebreaker, and we will get the icebreaker in English. And of course, we can translate that to French. Again, it's a short one, and we get the translation in order to break the ice. So I'll hand it over to Bastien again to explain how we went to this step.
Yeah, just a few words about that. So it's not really different from what we built on the first use case. We leveraged existing infrastructure, existing architecture and data, because the model, what we already have the data about the prospect itself. What we added to that is specific rules within the prompt. And when I say specific rules, it's about saying how to write an icebreaker message, and also past example of Webhelp icebreaker message that they've used. All of this will be inserted into the prompt and will help ChatGPT to provide an answer.
Thank you. And the last use case, it's a little bit wider. It's not about the icebreaker. It's not about information that have been provided to the GenAI. It's very simply, if I want to write a message to a prospect, can the AI make sure that it is correct, both in terms of orthograph, grammar, and of semantic? So let's look at an example in order to make it work seamlessly. We'll go to the writing assistant and we copy and paste a message in which there are a few mistakes. For example, you will see it says profile instead of profile. It says subscribe instead of subscribe. It is a bit heavy saying you recruit heavily and we talk about cost. And very quickly, the AI is going to rephrase that, of course, making the corrections for the orthograph, but also rewarding, for example, the recruit heavily appears at the end of the sentence, make it nicer. And instead of talking about limited cost, it says while keeping costs low. The nice thing is that at the bottom right, the AI even explains why it did those changes. And we can have the same kind of approach for a message in French. So here we chose an example where we are very blunt. We say Salut Manon, on peut s'appeler. There's a mistake, remarquer instead of remarquer. So the AI will both make the changes to the original language paragraph. You see, it's really nicer. Serait-il possible de discuter de cela lors d'un appel, rather than on peut s'appeler, but it also translates into English. So that can be very useful for Webhelp Enterprise projects. Sometimes those projects cover a number of languages, but the managers won't speak all of the languages. So what did we learn while working on those use cases? The first thing I think is that we really need to give a precise goal to the tool. The area of application is very wide, but you cannot be soft when designing the goal for the tool. It understands very precise goals, and that's why we spend some time and some back and forth talking with the users in order to understand exactly what would be useful for them, and making sure at the end that the end result was good for them. And that helped Bastien, who designed the algorithm, to make sure that it get the right rules. The second one is preload as much data as possible. It's as I mentioned, ChatGPT responds in real time, but if we want this to be efficient, we need to have data available. Doing the scrapping in real time wouldn't save that much time, so that's why we do batches. But that can also be improved in order to get fresh data, that kind of thing. And also, it's very important that we choose what kind of data we feed to the AI. There are external data, internal data, meaning proprietary, because GenAI algorithms know how to do a lot of things, but they know it based on common knowledge. So if you want to have something that's really useful for you, you have to tell him exactly where to go look for data, or you have to provide him with your own data. And the third one is continuously ask for user feedback. That's important in order to make the algorithm more powerful. That's why at the bottom of the front end, you may have seen that we have those I'm happy with the answer, I'm not happy with the answer, you could do better. This will help the algorithm become better and better. So really, the outcome for us is that GenAI tools, they're only an infrastructure on which you can build, but if you want to build it, you need to provide specific instructions, you need to provide data, and that means also that you have to have people working together on this with different expertise. We need the business expertise, we need the algorithmic expertise, we need the engineering expertise in order to make it work. And next step is going to be scaling. I'm sorry, I just saw that we have a question here. Do you consider fine-tuning a model at some point? I'm not sure if I answered to that, but two answers on this. The first one is that usage is going to improve the model, and also yes, we're looking at different ways to fine-tune the model. For example, the model can be adapted a little bit for each of the different projects that Webhelp Enterprise works on. Also, we're looking at other signals that we can add. Julie mentioned weather, which can be interesting in a number of cases. But yes, there are ways to fine-tune the model. And what's your approach to handle possible errors made by the model in the rephrasing? That's a tough one. We already did a lot of testing, and sometimes we still find mistakes. That's also kind of the next step here. There was a quick mock-up developed over the summer, but we already found a number of mistakes that we could fix. And again, usage is going to help us fix this. Bastien, do you want to take over about scalability?
Yeah, and I think those questions were a good transition for that. As mentioned by the questions, there are some constraints and limitation of generative AI and large language model that you have to take into account for scalability. So one of them is ambiguity of the model, right? The output might vary depending on the questions, and also for the same question, it might also vary in terms of format, but also in terms of content. Large language model are stochastic, so variation is part of them. To limit that, to mitigate that, well, a few things have been taken into account. First, few-shot learning, present some examples within the prompt, modify your prompt version and see what's getting better, and also break big prompt into simple ones. We've seen that when you ask too many things within the prompt, too many functions, it doesn't work well. So this ambiguity can be mitigated and implemented for scalability. The second issue is latency. Large language models are based on sequential outputs. This means that it generates one token at a time, and this might take some time for translation, for instance. So what we have here in terms of to mitigate this is, as Joe mentioned, preload at maximum, preload what you can within the database and pre-process, anticipate on the call to ChatGPT or to any other model, so that you have something that is reduced at the end. Here we've already pre-processed the Webhelp database. We've consolidated the database so that it's batch processing, and we reduce the API score as much as possible. And finally, one question was about fine-tuning. So yes, fine-tuning can be considered within this MVP, but fine-tuning requires a lot of labeled data. And when I say labeled data, it's something that you need to provide if the answer was positive or negative regarding the question. And for that, you need to log the user feedback. Did the answer was correct or not according to the user, the sales feedback? So that's something to take into account. Another thing to take into account for performance is to monitor end-to-end impact, not only by user feedback, but look at the metrics, the overall impact of the model, and how this can improve the conversion of Webhelp, for instance, of the sales agents. And finally, once you have all of that, you can consider fine-tuning and enrichment of the database. So fine-tuning can be done within the application. You can implement reinforcement learning or simply fine-tune on top of what you already gathered in terms of data. And the part of enrichment is also to take into account. We would like to implement some other, to add some other data sources or some other metrics dimensions, such as does the sales have people relations in common with the prospect on LinkedIn? That could be something added on top of the model that would provide additional information. I hope it answered the few questions.
We do have questions. I don't know if you can see them, Bastien and Jérôme. We have a first question that's very technical, so I will log this first. If I understand it correctly, this functionality is deployed using Streamlit, which is easier to bring Python code to web. Is the app a formal version of the app, since it seems to be buggy sometimes? I ask this because if I were the user, I want it to be stable and smooth to use. Also, the UI enhancement and the scalability in the future. Thanks. Bastien, that's for you, this one.
Yeah. So you're right. It's built on Streamlit. Well, this is not that buggy, but this is a master viable product, right? I think, and Julie, I will let you confirm that what we want to apply in terms of scalability is to not have something embedded within the tools of the sales themselves. So this is something just to provide a first understanding of the usage of ChatGPT, and then in terms of application and front end, we will probably move to something else.
Yeah, exactly. So today you've seen an app in a web browser. The ultimate goal for us is to have a kind of maybe a Chrome extension or whatever, but something that's light and that's not adding an extra tool or extra web page to scroll to the agent. We have another question from Charles. Do you consider fine-tuning a model at some point? Yes. I mean, again, it's just a demo and mock-up. We want to fine-tune and further develop this. And there's another question. What's your approach to handle possible errors made by the model, for instance, in the rephrasing, on the technical side, but also on the user side? I would say on the user side, the key point for us is not to automate, it's really to provide a draft. So I do agree with you that we need to make sure our people just don't do copy and paste after that. But that's for me a management and training issue more than the technology one. To handle possible errors, I don't know if you've seen that, but today the user is able to provide the feedback to the LLM to see if the answer was satisfying or not. The next phase actually to control the quality somehow would be to make sure we connect this with analytics. So if we work on the semantic or the icebreaker, ideally then we will be able to capture the feedback automatically, whether the message was open, read, if ultimately this lead converted into a sales and so forth to improve the LLM and what the messages we are messages we are providing. Bastien, you may want to add to that.
Well, not much. We've already mentioned a few limitations on the technical side, let's say, reduce ambiguity, do prompt versioning to see what's getting better over time. And I think your first question about fine-tuning is also something to reduce the risk of having different outputs. So once you have enough data provided, well, you can fine-tune and hopefully reduce the variation of the outputs. Jérôme, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. What are the next steps? So again, that was a mock-up, and to be frank, we're pretty happy with it because it really shows what we can do. It has been shown and tested by managers in the sales team, and they were happy about it. The first thing they say, of course, is how much time it will save for them, but then we have to improve and deploy. So what we have in the pipe is adding sources and functionalities. For example, a very good idea that we heard was, can I know how far am I from the prospect in terms of LinkedIn steps? And that's something that we're thinking about adding to the tool. And if a salesperson has a common contact with the prospect, that can be a very interesting thing to know. So we'll keep deep diving on that. Improving the ingestion of scrap data. Again, as I mentioned, this was done in batch. We're looking into possibilities to refresh this batch. Not, and we're still trying to decide whether we should refresh the whole batch or if there's a way to refresh only parts of the batch so that we can have more fresh data. And the big question is to what extent can we add prospects, for example, in real time to this database? And of course, algorithm training so that we can make sure, as Charles mentioned in his question, that it is helpful for the salesperson, it is consistent, and it avoids to make mistakes. Thank you, everyone, and then we can proceed with even more question. I see there's a new one. Have you considered using Google rather than Azure? If so, why did you choose Azure? I think there are two questions behind it. Maybe there's a question about the algorithm and a question about the infrastructure. So the infrastructure to start with the simple one, it's what Webhelp uses for a lot of applications. So we wanted to remain in a Webhelp environment. And regarding the algorithm, I'll leave it to you, Bastien.
Yep. So regarding the algorithms, well, at the time we started the project, ChatGPT 3.5 was still the best on the market. As Jérôme mentioned, there is this constraint about the infrastructure to take into account. But what we build is also to be agnostic. So we have a layer on top of that takes into account many LLM models, and we would be able to switch to any of those LLM models in a matter of days. If we wanted to use Vertex AI, for instance, or Palm model, we should be able to.
Julie wanted to add something, maybe?
No, as you said, we have the partnership with Microsoft initially, working mostly on Azure. So, and Lead Factory was developed on Azure as well. So that's why we went with this solution for now. We have other questions, huh? Okay, I have a question for Anouhi. It's in French, so I don't know if everyone can understand it. That's a good point you have. You say that maybe you'd like to have perspective or expectations on HR. That's a very good topic. The reason we do that, obviously, is to be innovative, and GenAI is something everybody wants to try at the moment. But the main expectation we have is not just to provide the technology to our people. It's actually to empower them, as you say, and retention in the sales area is a key topic. I mean, in any area, it's a topic. Recruitment and retention of key talents. So we believe that providing our people with the best tools will definitely help them stay with us. If we make their life easier, they will enjoy their work better. They will be more efficient and spend more time actually engaging with clients. With this, which is the added value. There is no point in having a sales person scrapping the web or searching for information and taking 1 hour to prep any single call. So the more efficient we help them, the better it is. That's a key topic indeed. And the main reason why we're doing that.
Usually, there are other questions. I just mentioned another point that a question that we've had previously regarding privacy and security. I think that's important to mention that all of the data remains within Webhelp Azure environment. There's no data going outside, so there's no leakage, of course, but also it means that what the algorithm is learning from Webhelp proprietary data, that remains proprietary to Webhelp. It's not going to improve the algorithm for other users. I don't see any more question. If there's one, that you raise your hand quickly. No? Seems to be okay. Well, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Bastien. And thanks everyone for attending this webinar, and feel free to reach out to Julie, Bastien, or myself should you have any more questions. Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.